Did you know the average person spends over 4 hours a day on their phone? That's 28 hours a week, or 1,456 hours a year, more time than most people spend working. Now, imagine if you could free up just half of that time. What would you do with all that extra space in your life? In this video, I'm going to share 6 powerful things I quit to simplify my life and save both time and money. From saying goodbye to clutter to cutting out unnecessary tech distractions, I'll walk you through the strategies that helped me take back control. We'll also talk about how these changes didn't just save me money, they boosted my happiness and well-being. You'll discover how quitting just a few things can lead to a calmer, more intentional life. So, if you're ready to learn how to live with less and still have more, stick around for these life-changing tips. Trust me, it's easier than you think. Chapter 1. I quit clutter to reclaim my space. One of the most transformative things I did to simplify my life was quitting clutter. I realized that the constant accumulation of things wasn't making me happier, it was only adding stress. The average American home contains around 300,000 items, according to the National Association of Professional Organizers. Think about that for a second, 300,000 items. That's a lot of things you probably don't even need. I started by tackling the areas of my home that gathered the most clutter: the closet, kitchen drawers, and countertops. It was overwhelming at first, but I broke it down into small, manageable tasks. For example, I would spend just 10 minutes a day decluttering one drawer, and by the end of the week, I had accomplished a lot. The key strategy was to ask myself, do I really need this? If the item didn't serve a practical purpose or bring me joy, I let it go. It wasn't about perfection, it was about progress. Marie Kondo's famous phrase, "Does it spark joy?" became my mantra. And it worked. I discovered that less truly is more. Decluttering is also a powerful way to clear mental space. A study from Princeton University found that clutter can actually reduce your brain's ability to focus and process information. When you eliminate unnecessary items, your mind feels freer, and you have more mental energy for things that truly matter. One strategy that really helped me was the one in, one out rule. Whenever I bought something new, I made sure to donate or sell something old. This not only kept my space from filling up again, but it also prevented impulse purchases. Also, I learned to avoid the just-in-case mentality. Holding onto items because I might need them someday was an easy trap to fall into. But in reality, most of these items were never used. In fact, the average American only wears 20% of the clothes in their closet regularly. Simplifying my home and quitting the clutter also made cleaning easier. I no longer had to dust around piles of stuff or organize things I never used. This led to a more peaceful, stress-free environment. The less I owned, the easier it was to maintain my space. Over time, I realized that simplifying my space didn't just reduce physical clutter, but also emotional baggage. I stopped tying my self-worth to possessions. Instead, I started to appreciate experiences and moments over material things. Now, when I purchase new items, I do so thoughtfully. I ask myself, will this add value to my life? If the answer is no, I walk away. This shift in mindset not only saves money but keeps my space calm and organized. Living with less allowed me to focus on what truly mattered. When I quit clutter, I didn't just free up space, I freed up time and energy for more meaningful experiences. Chapter 2. I quit overscheduling to find true freedom. Another crucial change I made in my life was quitting the habit of overscheduling. I used to think that being busy equaled being successful, but the truth is, it just led to burnout. Studies show that 60% of people say they feel overwhelmed by their daily tasks, and I was one of them. My calendar was filled with commitments, but none of them were truly fulfilling. The turning point came when I realized that I wasn't making time for myself. The constant rush from one event to another left me exhausted and disconnected. I started by blocking off me time on my calendar. At first, it felt uncomfortable, like I was wasting time. But soon, I realized that those moments of rest were necessary for my well-being. One strategy that helped me quit overscheduling was learning the power of no. In the past, I said yes to everything, whether it was work events, social gatherings, or volunteering opportunities. But once I understood the value of my time, I became more selective. I asked myself, is this worth my time? If the answer was no, I politely declined. Saying no wasn't easy at first. We live in a culture that often equates saying yes with being helpful or responsible. But I learned that saying no is actually an act of self-care and respect. Research from the American Psychological Association shows that overscheduling can lead to stress, anxiety, and even physical health problems. Instead of filling my calendar with back-to-back meetings or events, I created buffer zones between activities. These gaps allowed me to breathe, refocus, and recharge. I also started setting boundaries with work. I stopped checking emails outside of office hours and let people know when I needed time off. It was empowering. I also learned to prioritize activities that brought me joy. Whether it was spending time with family, reading a book, or going for a walk, I made sure to carve out time for things that nurtured my mind and body. This shift in focus helped me realize that productivity doesn't always mean doing more. Sometimes, it means doing less and doing it well. Overscheduling also meant I was spending less time on the things that truly matter, like relationships and personal growth. When I quit overscheduling, I finally had the time to nurture my connections with loved ones and focus on my personal goals. I realized that quality is far more important than quantity. Now, my schedule is much simpler. I only commit to the things that align with my values and long-term goals. This has given me a sense of freedom that I never thought possible. I no longer feel like I'm running on empty, and I'm able to enjoy the moments I have with others. By quitting overscheduling, I not only reduced my stress levels, but I also gained a deeper sense of control over my life. I realized that true freedom comes from choosing how I spend my time, rather than being at the mercy of an overflowing calendar. Chapter 3. I quit impulse buying for good. If there's one habit that truly sabotaged my finances and peace of mind, it was impulse buying. I used to buy things on a whim, whether it was the latest gadget, a cute pair of shoes, or an item I thought I deserved. But this cycle of impulse buying left me with buyer's remorse and an overflowing closet. The average American spends about $5,400 a year on impulse purchases, according to a survey by creditcards.com. That's a significant chunk of money. But once I realized how much unnecessary stuff I was accumulating, I decided to quit impulse buying once and for all. One of the first strategies I used was to implement a 24-hour rule. If I saw something I wanted, I would wait at least 24 hours before purchasing it. This simple strategy gave me the space to reflect on whether I really needed the item or if I was just succumbing to a temporary urge. I also started budgeting for fun money, a small, fixed amount each month that I could spend on anything I wanted, without guilt. The key was to plan for these expenses, so I wasn't going overboard. This gave me the freedom to enjoy little treats without the regret of impulsive buying. Another tactic that helped me curb impulse buying was focusing on my long-term goals. When I felt the urge to splurge, I would remind myself of my bigger financial objectives, whether it was saving for a vacation or building my emergency fund. This shift in mindset helped me prioritize my future over short-term satisfaction. I also learned to avoid triggers. For example, I unsubscribed from promotional emails and stopped browsing online stores for fun. Studies show that people are more likely to make impulsive purchases when they're exposed to constant advertisements. By cutting out these distractions, I made it easier to stick to my budget. Shopping with a list became another game changer. Whether I was at the grocery store or browsing online, I made sure to only buy what I needed. This prevented me from wandering down aisles of temptation and kept my purchases intentional. Eventually, I began to appreciate the value of experiences over material possessions. A dinner out with friends or a weekend getaway brought me more joy than a new pair of shoes. Research from the Journal of Consumer Research shows that people are often happier when they spend money on experiences rather than things. Now, when I make a purchase, I'm more intentional. I ask myself, is this something that will enhance my life? If it's not, I don't buy it. This shift in thinking has not only saved me money but has also led to a more fulfilling and less cluttered life. By quitting impulse buying, I learned the value of thoughtful spending and became more in control of my finances. It was liberating to break free from the cycle of unnecessary purchases and focus on what truly brings me value. If you're finding these tips helpful, don't forget to subscribe to get more life-changing ideas on how to simplify and save. Chapter 4. I quit eating out to save big and eat healthier. One of the most eye-opening changes I made was quitting the habit of eating out regularly. Dining at restaurants, especially fast food, seemed convenient at the time. But when I took a closer look at my spending, I was shocked. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American household spends around $3,000 a year on dining out. That's a lot of money for meals I could have easily prepared at home. To make the change, I first started meal planning. I would sit down on Sundays and plan out all my meals for the week. This gave me structure and helped me avoid the temptation of last-minute takeout. Meal prepping became my secret weapon, and I would cook in bulk so I could enjoy home-cooked meals throughout the week without much effort. Another important strategy was setting a grocery budget. I was surprised to find that when I focused on sticking to a set amount, I naturally became more conscious of what I bought. I started buying more whole ingredients, cutting down on processed foods, and even trying to buy in bulk. Not only did this save me money, but it also led to healthier meals. I also learned how to make my favorite restaurant meals at home. Cooking at home doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. With the help of YouTube videos and recipe apps, I was able to recreate dishes I loved for a fraction of the price. It felt great to enjoy the same flavors without the extra cost. Instead of eating out as a social activity, I began hosting dinner parties with friends. It was fun to cook together and share a meal at home. Studies show that sharing a home-cooked meal is not only more cost-effective but can also lead to stronger social bonds. Plus, it felt less rushed than dining at a crowded restaurant. Cooking at home also helped me become more mindful about what I was eating. I had control over portion sizes, ingredients, and nutritional content. This led to healthier choices and gave me the satisfaction of knowing exactly what went into my food. By quitting dining out, I started making healthier decisions without even realizing it. Over time, I started to appreciate the ritual of cooking. It became a creative outlet for me, and I began experimenting with new recipes. I discovered that cooking could be a form of self-care, not just a task. And as a bonus, my kitchen skills improved. Now, I reserve dining out for special occasions only. It's something I truly look forward to, rather than a regular habit. I've learned to enjoy the process of cooking, and it has been one of the most rewarding aspects of my minimalist journey. Chapter 5. I quit the keeping up with the Joneses mentality. The keeping up with the Joneses mentality was one of the hardest habits to quit. Society constantly tells us that we need more gadgets, bigger houses, fancier clothes. But I realized that trying to keep up with others was a never-ending cycle. Research shows that people often feel unsatisfied after comparing themselves to others, which can lead to stress and financial strain. The first step in breaking free was understanding that material possessions don't define my worth. I began to shift my focus away from the opinions of others and embraced a more personal definition of success. This mindset shift was inspired by books like The Minimalist Entrepreneur by Sahil Lavingia, where he talks about how minimalism can help you focus on your own goals, not societal expectations. Instead of buying things to impress others, I started asking myself, do I really need this? If the answer was no, I'd put it back. I began to appreciate what I already had and focused on making the most of it. Studies show that people who practice gratitude tend to be happier and more content. So, I made it a point to list things I was grateful for every day. One of the most important strategies I used was to avoid comparing myself to others. I stopped scrolling through social media as often and unfollowed accounts that triggered feelings of inadequacy. A study published in Cyberpsychology, Behavior, and Social Networking found that social media use is linked to feelings of jealousy and lower self-esteem. Reducing exposure to these platforms allowed me to focus on my own goals and values. I also learned the value of being content with less. Instead of buying things to fit in, I started to find joy in simpler pleasures, like taking a walk or spending time with family. Research from the Journal of Consumer Research shows that people who prioritize experiences over material goods tend to feel happier and more fulfilled in the long run. By quitting the desire to keep up with others, I was able to save money and live more authentically. I started investing in things that truly mattered to me, whether it was a hobby, a trip, or my health. Letting go of comparison gave me more freedom to focus on my own unique journey. Living without the pressure to keep up also meant I could prioritize my financial goals. Instead of spending money on things that didn't add value to my life, I focused on saving, investing, and building a secure future. I realized that financial independence was much more fulfilling than owning the latest trends. Now, I'm proud of my minimalist lifestyle. I know that the things I have reflect my true needs and values, not the latest societal trends. By quitting the habit of comparing myself to others, I've been able to live a more fulfilling and financially secure life. Chapter 6. I quit tech overload to boost my mental clarity. Another huge change I made was quitting tech overload. In today's world, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by constant notifications, emails, and social media updates. A study from the University of California, Irvine found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to refocus after an interruption. The constant stream of digital distractions was draining my energy, so I decided to take control. The first step I took was limiting my screen time. I started setting boundaries around when and how often I used my devices. For example, I turned off most notifications and set specific times for checking emails and social media. This reduced the feeling of being always on and helped me reclaim my time. Another strategy was to schedule tech-free zones. I made my bedroom a no-tech zone, no phones, laptops, or tablets allowed. This helped me establish a better sleep routine, and I noticed I was feeling more rested and focused during the day. Research shows that blue light from screens can interfere with sleep quality, so cutting out tech at night made a huge difference. I also decided to delete apps that were taking up too much of my time. Social media was one of the biggest culprits. According to a Pew Research Center report, 70% of adults say they check social media at least once a day. By reducing my time on these platforms, I noticed that I felt less anxious and more present in my daily life. Instead of mindlessly scrolling through my phone, I began replacing that time with activities that fed my mind. I started reading books more often and practicing mindfulness. Studies have shown that mindfulness can improve focus and reduce stress, which has been a game changer for me. To further limit my tech usage, I created a tech-free morning routine. I started my day with a cup of coffee and some quiet time, rather than immediately reaching for my phone. This simple change helped me feel more centered and intentional throughout the day. By quitting tech overload, I was able to regain mental clarity and boost my productivity. I found that without the constant distractions, I could focus more on important tasks and make better decisions. My mind felt sharper, and I became more mindful of how I spent my time. Now, I consciously choose when to engage with technology, rather than letting it dictate my day. Quitting tech overload has given me the mental space to be more present and focused, ultimately simplifying my life in a way I never expected. Living without tech distractions has also improved my relationships. I now spend more time connecting with family and friends in person, which has deepened my connections. The less time I spent in front of a screen, the more time I had for the people and experiences that truly matter. By quitting tech overload, I not only simplified my daily routine but also improved my overall well-being. It's a change I never thought I needed, but it has made all the difference. If you found these tips helpful, make sure to subscribe for more simple and actionable ideas to help you live a better, more intentional life.